If you're a corporation, it turns out that huge profits does not necessarily lead to huge taxes. In fact, the 7 of the 30 largest corporations paid more to their CEOs than they did in federal taxes in the last span of time that was analyzed. 7 companies, the ones I mentioned, Boeing, Ford, Chevron, Citigroup, Verizon, JPMorgan Chase, and General Motors, reported a tax rate of negative 2.5% despite claiming more than $74 billion in combined pre-tax profits. That is not 2.5. That is not like an arrow pointing at the 2.5. That is negative 2.5%. And they paid their chief executives an average of $17.3 million each. In fact, 29 of the 100 highest paid CEOs were paid more in 2013 than the corporations they oversee paid in federal income tax. That's up from 25 in the top 100 in 2010 and 2011 surveys. So this is a problem that is not only bad, it's also getting worse in just the past few years.
So this is in the span of last year that they looked at these numbers. I'm amused that in the looking glass world that we have, that you can report $74 billion in pre-tax profits and then say, no, it's okay, I lost money, give me money back from taxes.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, how does pre-tax profits magically turn into post-tax losses? Well, it's with healthy accounting and loopholes put in there specifically to be able to make these claims. The people who put in the loopholes are government officials and politicians, and who are they funded by? You're going to be shocked to find out these same exact corporations.
Yeah. So, yeah, you almost at this point have to consider them interns. And I think they'll get a job if they stick with it.
Yeah, and they will. That's exactly what will happen. Yeah. And Eric Cantor loses his seat in Congress and immediately gets a job on Wall Street. Yeah. You know, and you win, you lose, doesn't matter. Anytime you retire, these guys have a job worth millions of dollars. Yeah. And they gave Eric Cantor about $3 to $4 million for about at most a year and a half of work.
Yeah, exactly.
And he doesn't know anything about finance.
Yeah. It's easy to criticize him, but he never calls in sick. It's there first every morning.
Yeah. And he said, no, it's okay. Eric's a hard worker, and he's always liked Wall Street from the outside. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. That's true, right? True. So in this case, they're getting huge tax loopholes so that they get money back from us. So that's not just theoretically taking money out of our pockets by not paying their taxes. In this case, it's actually taking money out of our pockets as taxpayers and giving it over to them while they handsomely pay their CEOs. And one more thing about that. If their CEOs are so clever, and that's why they're being paid so much, then why is it that on the record, their companies have lost so much money? Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, I lost money, so you're going to have to give me a tax rebate, and at the same time say my CEO is a genius, and that's why I had to overpay them.
Unfortunately, apparently they can.
Apparently they can, yeah. Let's fix the rules.
Let's talk more about the tools of how they're able to do this. The 29 corporations we previously mentioned operated 237 subsidiaries in tax havens, and only 12 of those corporations reported U.S. losses last year. Now, interestingly about those 12, CEO pay at those unprofitable firms averaged $36.6 million, more than 3 times the national average for CEOs of large companies. So in this sample at least, the most unprofitable companies are those paying far, far more to their CEOs. So apparently they're too clever, I think. It's starting to backfire on them.
Well, look, I don't blame any particular company. I don't blame any particular executive. So this is a systemic problem. So if you say to an executive, hey, you can stack the board with all of your friends and allies, and they'll pay you 3 times as much as the average CEO, even if you lose money. Wouldn't you do it? I'd probably do it, right? Yeah. I mean, human nature leads people to say, yeah, I'd do that, right? If you say to an executive, hey, you can give campaign donations and then get 100 times the return, maybe 1,000 times the return from the government, well, wouldn't you do it? Human nature leads most people to say, well, of course I would do it. So the problem isn't any individual or any company, and you have to understand companies are not immoral. They're also not moral actors. They're amoral. They have no morality at all. They're not designed for that. They're a computer program, basically, that we have designed to maximize profits. So that is what they're driven to do. So if they can buy politicians, of course they will. If they can rig the rules in their favor, of course they will. So let's not let them do that. Let's fix the rules. Let's fix the code so that they cannot do both of those things. And those are 2 separate things. One is buy off the government, and the other is gain control of their boards so that they can do things like pay themselves more money and hurt their shareholders, the true owners of the company, while doing so.
But then the most frustrating thing is that you have this system with so many obvious flaws, and then you have conservative economists come out and say, well, you know, free market, we have these theories about the free market. Why aren't you listening to us when we propose some sort of like flat tax and things like that? As if you can go anywhere in the United States and find an actual free market.
Yeah, wouldn't it be lovely if we had a free market? How do you think they got the negative 2.5% tax rate? You think that was because of a free market? Is there negative tax rates in free markets?
No, I don't even know what that means.
They use all sorts of accounting tricks like depreciation to come up with a really simplistic example to say, oh no, you see, I paid too much taxes then, or I'm going to pay more taxes later, and that's why this year you actually have to give me a rebate and give me money back. Yeah. And this doesn't even count things like $14 billion a year in oil subsidies for literally the most profitable companies in the world, in the history of the world. But we give them $14 billion back. That's not free market. That's, you go buy a politician, you do crony capitalism. Yeah. And again, whether you're a liberal, conservative, or libertarian, you should hate crony capitalism. You should hate this kind of corruption, and you should fix it. It's called wolf-pack.com. We have the answer. Look into it.
The final thing I want to say about that, because I was just thinking, you know, there might be some people who consider themselves politically in the middle watching this, and they see that they're not paying taxes, and many of the people watching it might be, well, I don't want to pay my taxes, so, you know, I'm not going to begrudge them if they don't have to pay it. But you have to bear in mind, it's not like these corporations aren't exacting any costs socially. You know, their trucks drive on the roads and do damage to the roads. If it's, you know, Chevron or something like that, our military has to defend them when they do things abroad. Our justice system has to prosecute their cases. All of that has to be paid. And if they're not paying it, and they're not paying it, who do you think is paying it? You're paying it. I'm paying it when I actually pay my taxes. All of you out there are paying it. They're just not paying it. And so that should be frustrating for you, even if you naturally like low taxes.